let's talk about engineering. What are there's so many types of engineers. But let's talk about professional licensed engineers. What is a professional licensed engineer? A professional licensed engineer gets a bachelor's degree from after 4 years of college, passing the accredited courses. That's it. Now, with my understanding, I think they're called AP classes. My daughter will receive college credit in high school already. And I know that this has been an ongoing trend in the school system here in Houston, and it's great. It promotes a lot of science, technology, engineering, math-based tech positions where some of times underserved communities and kids with less resources are getting higher quality of education and preparing them for real world future jobs. That being said, I have a wide scope of friends and family, from my daughter, a teenager, to my best friend, young 30s. Lots of people my own age, 50. And so a licensed engineer, you can be a licensed engineer that can draw a design, sign off on that design, that design is theoretically solid, right? In the engineering, in theory, is good subjective, that's a terrible word, is approved, and then they can work off of those drawings. So another thing that you learn is you learn how to draw plans. AutoCAD is easy. I mean, I learned drafting in high school. I had 4 years of civil drafting under a teacher that was teaching night school for the University of Houston. We learned, before computers came out, how to draw blueprints by hand. It was a really cool class. I took it all 4 years in high school. I enjoyed drawing, and it was kind of a natural for someone who is detail-oriented, artistic drawing of nature. So we were drawing blueprints for entire homes, machine parts, and everybody in there was a performer, right? Like, we were nerds. I just happened to skateboard. One of the guys happened to be like this rock Stevie Ray Vaughan, badass guitar player. Had no idea. Like, they had a school talent show. I thought it was going to be lame, and then he closed out the talent show, and I was like, whoa, man. He's in my engineering class, and I had no idea. He like freaking rocks. The ladies loved him, right? Richie. Anyway, long story short, our teacher, Mr. Clark, he was great, man. He was great. We didn't understand how to build a home, but we understood what went into the designing of building a home. So we didn't understand how all the critical infrastructure worked, but we understood how to draw all that infrastructure perfectly. To the point of you're drawing it by hand and you're making hand corrections. It was slow, but it was meticulous. Why, I guess maybe we enjoyed it. This is before everyone was just provided Adderall to pass to score well. And my senior year, Mr. Clark finally signed on with an oil company and told us that he was leaving. And we were all happy for him, man, because he was going to go finally make like $100K at the time. This is the 90s. I graduated in 92. So man, I think he was a teacher, high school teacher. He was probably earning $40,000 a year. Teachers are always underpaid. Texas is a terrible state for underpaying social services, in spite of us being an oil-rich, energy-rich town. A lot of that really didn't trickle down as planned with the economic system. But back to the education and engineering. So imagine this. You've got a couple years of engineering experience in school. You can do the calculus, you can do the math, you can do the theory, learn AutoCAD. AutoCAD's pretty easy. You could learn Tinkercad. There's a lot of different variables now. AI, just prompt 3D the model that I need. So I don't like using that word, need to remove it from my vocabulary, weak wording. My point is, someone comes out of college, they're a licensed engineer on the books, working probably for an engineering company or something, right? Depending on what field of engineering they went in. Well, then with the company, they have insurance that protects them, and a legal department, compliance, and maybe a senior engineer that overlooks and approves, even though your name is on it. You're really not captaining any ship. You're not piloting anything. I don't know if they're thinking about the lives that are on the line if something that they draw is incorrect necessarily on a personal level, or understand all engineering is such a wide field. How can anyone know everything about engineering when there's so many different segments of engineering? You have ocean, you have aeronautical, you have space, you have electrical, and then you have industrial infrastructure, and you have, so it's like, and that there's also overlaying elements. But you could have a licensed engineer coming out of college, right? You passed, you graduated. I'm not down in that academic side, and they are looked at by recruiters and by agencies, municipalities, as a high value, high paying, because they sign off on those engineering documents, and those engineering documents then go to the city to get approved and planned. They get looked over there, and then you can build with the proper commissioning, permitting, etc. Now the engineer doesn't have to worry about really any of that. They draw it, they sign off on it, the system, it adds up. They don't have to have any real world experience. They don't have to understand pumps, they don't have to understand boilers, they don't have to understand infrastructure. Like, they understand engineering in theory, but engineering in practice is reality, right? So engineering in theory and engineering in practice are two different things. Engineering in practice, out in the field, what really runs the world is infrastructure. You can call it critical infrastructure, and it just depends. Whether it's building a cabinet can be looked at as a critical infrastructure. It's a box to me. Everything's building boxes to me. I started out building custom cabinets, right? And I love working with wood and learning all the different tools and how to make my cabinetry beautiful and perfect, and furniture, and so it's a very detail oriented. But I didn't have to go to school. I didn't go to school for that. I had a great mentor and learned by doing, which I learn better by doing. All right, we'll not complicate the language. By building, by doing, by creating, by physically taking action in that. So then we've talked about licensed engineers. Now let's talk about a stationary engineer. A stationary a stationary engineer, which the name is completely misleading, because there's not much stationary about stationary engineering unless you're sitting just in front of the plant, central plant monitor, the building management system, your building automation system. My damn gate fob's not working. I'm gonna clone that later, and that's gonna be another video. I know how to use RFID microcontroller to clone my fob, because they want to charge me $75 for a fucking fob. Probably need to change the battery. Okay, back to engineering. Stationary engineer, mandatory requirements: 5 years working with boilers on the job, in the field. And then you have to have your chief engineer, the captain of the ship, of that building, that project, that plant, whatever, who has the license and certifications to run those boilers. So stationary engineer means you can run boilers. People don't understand that the world runs on steam boiler power, and it's a pretty efficient way of doing things, but if they're not operated safely, they're bombs. I mean, what, you have a vessel, you add heat, add pressure, and you don't have the proper venting and water, and you have a bomb, for lack of a better term. It's just what it is. And you have to pass the exam, right? And I took the exam 3 times. The first time I took the exam, I failed by 1 question. And there was 1 trick question on the test, man, and I beat myself up. I was 68. You have to score 70% on the licensing exam after you've spent 5 years working around it. Build a relationship with your chief engineer so that he's willing to sign off on this, hopefully tell you about this path and mentor you, say, yo, you can make more money once you get your stationary engineering license, because then you can move up and be the chief. But I asked him one time, great man, great mentor, great chief, right? I asked him one time, how do you manage operating a large brutalist structure in the heart of downtown and a high rise? That's a lot of responsibility. And he said, I just think of it like a second home. They're like a second family. I'm here a lot, so I wouldn't treat it any different than I would treat my home. And then I understood, once you understand someone's expectations, you can rise to their expectations. While we were not alike at all, we were aligned in our integrity. He, being chief doesn't always mean being popular, because you're bringing the bad news to leadership that, hey, XYZ infrastructure, we've tried to fix it, I've tried to save you money, we've done everything in our power, it has to be replaced. And this is a black swan. It wasn't predictable. There were no previous indicators that it was going to go out. The maintenance logs are there, etc., etc. So, right? And then shit still happens, and they don't want to spend, whatever organization you're at, they don't want to spend that because that money's allocated for something else, and you've got to be the ones that, sorry, you don't have infrastructure, you don't have a building, you can't really operate. This would shut you down by compliance, because it wouldn't be safe to operate. But the people that are willing to address that are the real leaders and mentors. And then there's property management, right? Who hires engineers, stationary engineers. And pivoting back to, because I want to get inside, stationary engineer has to have 5 years of experience, signed off by his chief that he knows what the fuck he's doing, and then go take the test and pass it. Second time, I get the math test. Hey, I'm the engineer that's bad at math. That's what I've got: a computer, AI, calculator. for, I can do basic carpentry math all day long, right? Love pencil math. The way they do math now, I have no idea. Like, and I'm not a math brain. I'm a creative analyst, assertive, whatever. So I said so again. Catching it though, mental note. My point is, who sounds like they have more value? The person that's captain of the ship. You're responsible for all the lives, the building, the property, the environment, and you're keeping everything in compliance, fire, life safety, scheduling around whatever they operationally do so that there's no shutdowns and that you can, implement whatever types of black swans unprobabilistically come up that you have to deal with. As a chief, like, scheduling, organizing is huge. But number one at all time should be life safety, right? Because you don't want to be the person that has to tell someone or live with, even if you're like at that level, ignorance is not an excuse. It's negligence. It is. We could argue about that. But if you're in that position and you're responsible, and there's a loss of life, an injury, an accident, then what type of leader are you if you don't take accountability? Like, you have to say, I am sorry, I made a mistake, that is on me. Now, hopefully it wasn't a preventable mistake, right? Like, if you weren't doing your fucking job, then your ass is grass. Because you know what? You are the lowest man on the food chain. They don't give a fuck about you, chief. They're just honestly, they don't, right? We know that. Chiefs know that. But that doesn't stop a leader with honor and value, integrity, to stop them from performing their job to the best of their ability. They're gonna toe the line because they don't want on their conscience knowing that somebody's kid, somebody's grandma, somebody's got hurt when they were on their watch, right? So it's like, I have a 99.9% zero operational failures, zero operational shutdowns, zero operational injuries, people hurt on my watch. In fact, I can say, like, hey man, I worked on this great team, really, 7 years, right, at the Alley Theater. Sounds crazy. It is not a movie theater, so don't get the wrong idea. Search it up. They're world-class, award-winning. Saw a lot of hot, famous actresses come through and do stage theater there. That one of my best friends was the leading man, and hang out with a lot of cool people. Anyway, the Alley Theater is great, man. It is just one of the. Everyone there was 99.9% just like apex performers at the job, best of the best, including the chief. Just like, it was an amazingly smooth running operation. It was like military smoothness. Man, they had the fire evacuation plans for evacuating people out of the theaters if there was a live performance going on down, man. Like, it was amazing. The house managers, the people that were there, they were perfectionists, they were all A performers, A class, and I learned so much there. Like, it was because it's literally it's like working at a movie studio, right? So they have everything there that you can imagine because they build everything in-house. So imagine getting to work with people that work in every aspect of manufacturing and artistic performance on every level, especially leadership. I was the safety chair of the engineering team at the time, requested by the production manager at the time if I would be safety manager. I gave a speech about bug out bags one day. I got on stage in front of 200 people about hurricane emergency safety and preparedness. we had a lot of new people come to the area, you know, transplants to Houston. They didn't know what a bug out bag was. They didn't know, you know, about hurricane season and flooding in Houston. Those weren't the only things that we talked. I also did the first ever digital fire extinguisher demo, where our managing director came down and put out a digital fire. The Houston Fire Department was there. It was a cool, fun event. I don't know, man, like taking life safety and just like being a perfectionist when it comes to infrastructure, not letting shit slide, is just how I operate, right? Like, do it right or don't do it, or do it at all. And some kid with coming out of college with no experience has no frame of reference. Like, again, engineering in theory is not engineering in. So while people frown on stationary engineers, they call them fucking maintenance men and all kinds of you know, horrible things, and yet they have no idea. Like, these are actually the guys that run the fucking world. Like, they know how everything works. And then if the systems go down, we know how to valve everything off and it still work without any sophisticated electronics. Like, so who's more valuable, really? And let's talk about something else, because we're at war right now, right? So if you're on the job, on site, you're on the front line, because now we have sophisticated electronics. They want to put AI into everything. All of these devices are vulnerable. VFDs, you know, just go down the list. If it's got sophisticated electronics, how do you know that it's not vulnerable when we've been shown vulnerability after vulnerability? There was a thing called the Striker hack recently, where they hacked pacemakers. Like, there are so many vulnerabilities and holes in our infrastructure that if you're a frontline stationary engineer, operator, plant operator on the job, technician in the field, I feel like this is a time where we could bring up, under OSHA standards, hazard pay and critical infrastructure. Like, you should be getting double pay right now, because if somebody hacks that VFD and it blows up, you are the closest to it by proximity. It's not to say that the others in the building aren't going to feel those effects, right? The people above, whatever, whether your infrastructure is below or above, whatever your proximity is, usually the operators are pretty close. They try to put the operating room near the infrastructure, or I don't know, that's not always true. However, generally your operator, engineer, those people are going to be closest to that infrastructure. If it's hacked and it's vulnerable, they shut off the water supply, they shut off the power, something fails, they run a malware to cause a chain failure, or worm in your BMS. Like, we don't have the operational security right now, and they're not bringing it up because they don't want to pay the overtime or the hazard pay or the critical wartime pay that you should be receiving for being on the front line. You didn't sign up for going to war. You signed up for whatever your political stance is, right? Look, I'm for the troops. I come from a military family. I made my grandfather a promise. He asked me not to ever join the military or work in an oil refinery, and I've never dishonored that, and I don't make very many promises. But there was a reason. He said the military is not the same as it used to be, and neither is the oil business. So we have that. But back to you guys that are on the front line, if you're on site, you are on the front line and should be asking questions. Frame it as an open-ended question. How are you handling compliance during this critical time where we're on the front lines? Do we fall under hazard pay for operating this critical infrastructure when this infrastructure has vulnerabilities? And what has been done to protect us, right? So anyways, stationary engineers, stay strong, man. engineering is a wide field, and some of the best engineers didn't even have a degree, and they were still engineers. Think about it. Farmers and agriculturalists were probably the first engineers. They were engineering farm equipment, so they didn't have to use horsepower and manpower, and they didn't have degrees. But would you say that their contributions to engineering were not significant? No. I'm out.